Bwahahahahaha. My name is Amy too, and welcome back to Synth again. I haven't posted anything on Friday because I was too busy last week, so let's just post one this week. Amy too saw a crazy bird-like man in the tree, and thought it was just another creature in her wild backyard. But her sister's reaction to the creature changed her perspective forever. Amy too. It's an awkward, bird-like movement, and it's in front of my eyes. I squint to make sure I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing. I'm looking at a bird with sharp, large, glowing eyes. A creature with the head of a raven and arms of an eagle. What? I was 5 years old, hiking along the river with my sister, when we heard a rustling in the bush. Then I noticed the bird-like man in the tree. My sister had noticed it too. In fact, she was startled. I would be too. In fact, I'd be more than startled. My sister has been very good with creatures, especially insects and spiders. It was strange. Yeah, I bet it was. As I began to take in what I was seeing, I froze in place. I was no longer 5. I was 15. Suddenly, you aged by 10 years. And the thing was about the same size as the bird that had startled us. But unlike the bird, the man was a balding man with a beard. And the feathers on his head were not red. I thought he was bald. As they were on my sister's Birdman. They were gray, like those of a hawk. And the bird-like man had wings. It was all I could do to keep from running and screaming. I tried to run, and screamed. As I got closer to it... Wait, why are you getting closer to it? It was still close, and I was afraid. I had heard some things before, but nothing like this. It had happened so fast, I didn't know what to do. My sister picked up a broom and started to dig a hole. With the broom? I was relieved that it wasn't a spider. When my friend finished burying the thing... Burying what? She screamed even louder than she had been before. And then she let out a deep and awful scream. Oh! I mean, what else could it be? In the next moment, and then a moment later, she had broken into uncontrollable sobbing. And that was the worst thing of all. It was all I could do to keep from running as... Okay, it's just looping this part. So anyway, that's the end of that one. Let's try that again, why don't we? What is this? Amy saw a crazy bird-like man in the tree one day. The man had taken a few very long strides. He could have been taller than Amy if he'd been standing, but he wasn't. So he's taking strides while crouching? He was just a normal man in a huge tree. So did it not realize the bird-like quality into this man? He kept on making his way through the branches. Amy was scared to look away. To look away? She finally realized he was just a man walking up a tree in search of an egg he had dropped. Amy too once met a witch. She was sitting at a picnic table, putting a piece of bread in her mouth. Amy too was afraid to talk to her because she knew she would have to answer all sorts of questions. So she kept her mouth shut, pretending to stare at something or other. All the time, the witch kept sneaking peeks at Amy too. That's pretty weird. At last, she broke her silence and smiled. Do you remember what you're doing now? Amy too was walking down the sidewalk with her mother, as always. Amy too carried her things. It's like creating new stories every so once in a while. A toothbrush, a change of clothes, and her clothes pockets. She stopped at a metal trash can. She glanced inside. It was full of brown paper bags full of clothing. What? Oh, discards from the Salvation Army. Probably. When she looked back up, there was a man in the bushes next to a tree. That would freak me out. Amy 2 left the woman and walked down the sidewalk. She turned a corner and soon saw the man. Why are you investigating him? For all you know, he could be, like a predator. In fact, he probably is. She was nervous, but she didn't think it was going to turn out all that bad. She saw him reach up to take something off of the ground. Wait, he reached up for that. He started to retrieve something when Amy 2 yelled. Why? Why did you yell? He looked up, saw her, and went to check his bag again. What had she said? What was that big man doing? Many stories to tell. When there is a tsunami going on, the first thing to do is to dig up the dead and put them on a massive pile so that they won't start the decomposition process and cause more problems. What? 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 But it turns out a much better solution to the problem would be to use the borrowed time trick and try to change the tide and save the day by giving people new stories to tell about the world. This is what Patrick tries to do when he agrees to talk to Amy 2. What is this? Patrick writes, I have heard of many stories that are simply too big and too horrible for one person to handle. So that wasn't one of them. So people cannot understand such horrible events until it happens to them, or someone close to them. So the first and easiest way to teach people something is to use the story. It is simply by using a story that people can understand. Amy 2, in fact, says that when she was a little girl, her grandmother used to tell her stories about people who lived thousands of years ago. Amy 2 now says that she should have listened better. It turns out that stories about long ago days of legends are enough to turn a small child like Amy 2 into a global change maker. And inspire others to help her save mankind from impending catastrophe. With the sheer success of the prequel. What prequel? Now it's time for Amy 2 and Patrick to travel to the nuclear power plant so that they can teach Patrick about the dangers of nuclear power and demonstrate to him the power of storytelling. What? In the process, Patrick ends up coming to the realization that he can help Amy. As a result, he joins with her to save mankind. What? That was a crazy bird-like adventure. Moon came out of the store and saw his car being launched into orbit by a giant slingshot. Moon came out of the store and saw his car being launched into orbit by a giant slingshot-powered spaceship. His sister, Summer, and the doctor following, he asked his sister where she'd been all this time. He had wanted to check on her. That's what you did in the other timeline? You just left me there? Where were you? It was a few hours. I couldn't wait for you. I'd never seen that spaceship in real life, and I was dying to know what it was. You know, I'm fascinated by space technology, so I went to find out what it was for. And how did you get that rocket? I took it. It's in my garage. Now where do you think I could go? That's a little less obvious. Because you've seen me on TV, and I'd rather not go around dressed like a clown right now. It would really freak my family out. Oh, and I had to ditch your little toy because it's not what? permitted. Oh, well, look, if you'll excuse me, I have to go get ready for a funeral. Come back soon! What? He returned to his house with several people in tow. When he got back to his room, he threw his coat into his bag and quickly picked up some books, and a few pictures that his sister had left. Summer seemed to be a bit distressed. What are you doing? You should not be doing this by yourself. You look silly. Don't be silly. You're famous now. The public will adore you and everything you do. And all the stuff you're obsessed with. Wait, question mark at the end of that? That's a question? We'll all know. And you won't even be able to fix your car. I'll take care of it. No, don't worry. I'll be right there, just watching. And if anything goes wrong, or if I learn anything that could endanger the galaxy? What? No. What in the world was that? What is this? Moon came out of the store and saw his car being launched into orbit by a giant slingshot. A huge smile stretched across his face, his heart pounding. With each beat, a little more life filled his body. He'd reached the maximum level of existence that could be bestowed on him, the maximum allowed by the laws of physics. His eyes locked on the earth. Not bad if I do say so myself, he whispered. Moon was alive. The man who had raised him all of his life felt the same. Father had used his life and energy to create this state. But that wasn't enough for his son. It wasn't enough for him. I did it. Okay. What in the world was that? The maximum allowed by the laws of physics. Moon came out of the store and saw his car being launched into orbit by a giant slingshot. Through the galaxy, in a very distant past, centuries ago and millions of light years away, Sun was working on a new Superman set, as his father wanted to make a trip to Earth and see the new Man of Steel. Moon left to save the day while the world, as they knew it, would be a better place, without evil Kryptonian Superman. What? Moon drove out on the freeway to where Sun was making the slingshot, and at this intersection of the freeway, Moon saw an ancient Greek spaceship in the sky. So he made a U-turn and sped off to a future dimension. A past dimension. That parallel dimension. Another Earth from the parallel Earth, and another parallel Moon. What? In a flash, Moon arrived at the other world. It was a world which had another alien race. A race that rivaled the very beings he is facing now. A race from another world, where they would believe it was the aliens that were the true destroyers of... What is this? True destroyers of the human race, and led to the beings of genocide. Moon saw a huge city and the moon rising high from the sky to clear the clouds, and he said to himself, "This is real." The city smiled at him. The moon rises from the great cloud which holds the remains of the earth, it said, just in a way that gave a shiver to Moon. The city did not teach Moon anything of its art, but it talked to him in a strange language. They told him that humanity should never stop demanding their true dream, a destiny to shape the universe. They said that only after the destruction of all races of alien worlds, alien races, would they understand their own language. "What is the end of mankind?" Moon said. "That will be over the year 2,000,000 of your own time," the other world replied. Moon considered the vision, but still saw no desire for peace, just hatred and fear. Moon came out of the store and saw his car being launched into orbit by a giant slingshot and hurtling over Russia towards China and America before finally heading out into the universe to crash land on the White House lawn. All this happened in the course of 1 week. And before anyone could stop him, it was too late. But some of the people who were just a little slower than him managed to flee Russia and avoid the lunar orbit and get to the White House before he did. The first to arrive was some people from New York who were traveling in a taxi cab when they saw the moon rocket take off and the Earth turn blue. Earth is already blue. The moon was still in orbit when they when they arrived and managed to get inside the White House. But then someone decided to start ringing the doorbell again. After being greeted by the janitor and told that the First Lady had been kidnapped, the people from New York managed to catch the President and Vice President as they were heading for the kitchen and... the kitchen? They were heading for the kitchen and got them all into the National Library for safekeeping. People from all around the world started arriving in the White House after the big celebration. When they arrived, they saw that the country had just turned into a real war zone. People were trying to pick the brains of the senior members of government who were obviously off making something out of themselves, and even the ministers who had been taking their tea breaks since the first war ended to see what had happened. Unfortunately, the bullet was shot into the heart of minister from Angola, and this killed him. Well, duh. The nation was in complete chaos as everyone rushed for their phones to find out what was happening. And then there was Gwyneth, the president's daughter. She was amazed by the whole thing and was leading the rally of people who were trying to rally the government, and so she was about to have an interview with the president. Wait a minute. She's the president's daughter. When the secretary realized something wasn't right, and that Gwyneth was no longer in her seat. As she looked into the green room, she saw that it was empty. She ran back to the living room and tried to call Gwyneth, but there was no response. So as the secretary yelled, "Why isn't Gwyneth in her seat?" on camera, everyone started panicking. But Gwyneth's room was locked, with all the keys inside. The only keys to Gwyneth's apartment were in the apartment, but no one knew how to get in. The secretary realized that if Gwyneth's room was empty, it could mean that Gwyneth had died, and no one could call or access the room. At this point, everything had to be searched for the keys, including the key ring. The vice president, who had been with Gwyneth, had called his wife. "Wait, you were with her?" The secretary took his key ring to Gwyneth's room, but when she... What is this, anyway? But when she got to the door, she realized the key ring had fallen from through the slot on the front door. The television crew from the news station 1010 was not there either. So she set off to find a TV crew in the office to see what was happening, only to realize that none of the televisions had working circuits. So she decided to walk to the White House and try to find someone who did. When she got to the entrance, she realized the keys were missing, and she found out it was President George W. Bush's son. What? He only happened to be in Washington at the time, and that they were about to leave for Europe. The vice president was convinced Gwyneth had been murdered by the president. What? He wanted to know if the president thought Gwyneth had been murdered by the vice president, the presidential chief of staff. What? This is devolving. She also turned up and told the White House they needed to speak to the vice president. So the vice president sent him to his own office to speak to him. What? Later that day, it was announced that the vice president had been found dead in his office. The president decided to travel to his son's apartment where he would live while he was in Europe. While the vice president was being buried, George W. Bush was seen arriving at the White House in the Lincoln. The housekeeping staff was at the Lincoln at the Lincoln were not very pleased that he had arrived. This is starting to mess with my brain. I'm starting to mispronounce everything. They thought he would be there to stay. Later, a picture was taken of the White House with a very bright moon, and the number 24 was shown on it. President Bush noticed this and started to think that he had been followed. Later that night, a helicopter landed on the lawn in front of the White House. What is this? Spending all my time reading this. The helicopter was the same one that was used in the assassination attempt on Reagan. What? What? Later that night, President Bush turned his car around and drove off in the direction of the helicopter. When Bush drove past the helicopter, the men aboard the helicopter saw that it was President Bush. During the raid that followed, all the civilians were killed. And, wait, how? And some of the CIA-trained assassins were killed in the attempt to capture the president. What? Bush later described that he was ordered to get out of town and told to go to Italy. What? Italy? And that was where he was now. The night of the assassination attempt on Reagan had finally come to an end. What? The president was no longer welcome at the residence, and he was locked out of his office. The rest of his staff were locked out of... What is this? The rest of his staff were locked out of their offices as well. Of course, the president and his family were not aware of this until that evening. Several days went by, and all the soldiers and other visitors were allowed back in the White House until the entire staff was back in. If President Bush was in a house, his family would never have known. In fact, the Secret Service did not... What? The Secret Service did not let him into the Oval Office for a while, because they said that they were not sure if the old president was still alive, and if he was alive, then what would he want to see? President Bush was secretly staying at a hotel in Washington, D.C. In the past, the Reagan family would have lived in the White House. Reagan was a former Navy man, and he often stayed at his cabin in California. Okay, I think that's enough of that one. What in the world? Slater found a wild banana-shaped bear in the woods. Slater found a wild banana-shaped bear in the woods and ran for help. The owner found it. Wait, what? The owner? They called the authorities, who shot and killed it. Slater has sued the state over the incident. Wow. Suing the state over an animal. Incredible. Although I wouldn't put it past some people. At last year's Slater versus Alaska trial, Dr. Richard G. Kalgren, a retired zoologist from the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. Is this a real dude? Now the only thing that shows up in here is stuff that's completely unrelated. Testified that when he asked Slater what the animal had been doing, the biologist answered, "Just being a bear." Slater maintains that, in fact, the bear was fleeing from him, trying to get away as he took a photograph. The bear, which was in excellent physical condition, weighed 450 pounds, and was very aggressive and would have been dangerous. Slater wrote on Facebook, "Wow, I accidentally started a new one." Whatever, it's on video anyway. Slater found a wild banana-shaped bear in the woods and returned to the hut. By the time he returned to the hut, the bear had gone, and he had not found the banana-shaped bear. So then he looked in the mirror and he saw two faces, one being the true face of KB. Slater looked at his banana-shaped face and saw his own face. So then he went to the mirror and saw a little boy crying. And then Slater decided that he wanted to make KB to see the banana-shaped face he saw in the mirror. So then Slater took a banana, made KB cry, ate the banana, and told KB to see his real face. The banana, the one Slater took, is the reason the boy and the little girl are twins. What? What? I don't want to know how that works. KB's face is in the mirror. Sticky bags. What? A couple years ago, there was a story on Disney.com that this was a thing. It was sticky bags. I don't want to know what that is. The story is, a certain farmer in a faraway village was deeply in debt. A man named Joe told him of a man named Peter, who lived in the next village with a brother who could build anything. Joe wanted to buy a new farmhouse for his son. His friends thought he was crazy, but Joe did not give up hope. Peter had told Joe of a trick. Peter had found a bag of fire ants. Joe should put them into his son's fire ant trap, and it would hold them in until he killed them all. What? Peter had told Joe to feed his son with fire ants, and what is this? What am I reading here? And then to help him collect fire ants, the farmers did so. What? And the bag burst into flame? It did not melt like when humans burned. What? What? What is this? The ants ran out the neck. What? They jumped onto their friend's leg and crawled up to his head. The next day, Joe opened the trap and there was his son. The face of his son did not look like a ghost, but a boy. So this is the past of the president. I didn't know he had such a strange past. The boy could talk now. He could walk again, but he was not haunted by the ghost of the ant. An ant can't be a ghost, though, because ghosts can't talk. Dead ghosts. Sometimes they call them dead ghosts. The body that died, while alive, can appear as an apparition. It still can't walk, though it can only communicate. This can be a real spooky thing, especially because what it says can come true. The haunted ghost. Yeah, I think if it's a ghost, it's haunted for sure. People try to look at the ghost face to face. This usually does not work. Ghosts can be pretty strong looking. In fact, ghosts can be pretty scary looking. The only horror stories people know about are mostly inspired by those which came to England from America. What? However, they all can happen anywhere. The Mound of Broken Dreams. Wizoo, Ghost Watch on Paranormal Society. Babylon, a documentary. Image credits. Graceful Gothic Girl from the Paranormal by Marcia Martin. Ghost Watch on Paranormal Society for many years, and often the Paranormal Society is seen as a source of information on ghostly entries. Thanks again to Marcia Martin for making us aware of her amazing book, The Paranormal. Two skeptics go to England to test a famous ghost story. What was that? It's getting to the point where I have no idea even remotely what I should call this episode. Amazonian umbrellas. Sutter found a wild banana-shaped bear in the woods. This magical creature must have passed him a message, as he was offered a leaf and a branch that would make him into a king. They are known as Amazonian umbrellas. A protective cloak. On another day, a monkey landed on one of the backpacks and climbed up. He handed Sletter a message from his shaman to drink a greenish liquid. The poor thing thought it was some kind of Kool-Aid. Sletter mixed some honey with it and gave the monkey the message. The honeycomb is your house. The honey, your food. The honeycomb, your way home. Now come home to your life. What? In 2 months since the bear has been set free, together with a few other animals, the shepherds and Sletter found wandering in the woods, The connection between the bear and the monkeys was so strong that they thought it wasn't a coincidence. It was. They were part of the same family. The forest of Connovinci has many islands connected by floating forests. You are supposed to use these islands as a vacation spot, but not on an island that has a bear and a message for a monkey. One of the islands is very famous, and it is also in the middle of a fierce struggle with malaria. Well, that's not good. Big Boy, Buddy, and Glady accidentally ejected a whole bunch of sentient bananas from their spaceship onto Earth. There was bananas everywhere, so they created the Fruitiverse to hide their identities. It seems we have a visitor from some unknown time, place, and species on our planet. As you can see, our friends on Earth are quite primitive, but quite friendly. The Earthlings are used to traveling on and surviving in the open. They are great and keep their secrets from everyone. However, they do what they can for the welfare of all Earthlings everywhere. They travel by rocket ship from planet to planet, and on the way, they've been passing their knowledge and secrets along. For example, where the Earthlings know fire, our friends know a special kind of acid. And the Earthlings can't even imagine life beyond our planet. As the Earthlings have been traveling, the Fruitiverse were sent on their way to the universe of food by... What is this? Universe of food? By the Fruitiverse at the beginning of the timeline. After 1,000 years of time traveling, the Fruitiverse made contact with the Alienverse. When we opened the doors to the universe of food, all kinds of creatures started coming out of it and out of the old pods, with many unusual appearances. We couldn't put them all in the universe of food, so we'd kind of like to set up a pet reserve where we place them in a safe and isolated world. This is where you come in. Fruitiverse rules. 1. No more than one race can be included in one session of the Fruitiverse. What? 2. No more than one chapter per character sheet may be created. We aren't joking. Try it. 3. Never include food in your character sheet. You can draw on food instead, but the food will not be mentioned. What? Big Boy, Buddy, and Glady accidentally ejected a whole bunch of sentient bananas from their spaceship, and it's now time for them to learn how to be human. Episode 19, An Unwanted Birthday Party. It is the first episode in the new season of the Canadian-American television show My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and is the 129th episode overall. The title of the episode comes from an ancient cultural festival in which ponies have a birthday party for themselves. What? The episode was co-written by Katie Griffin, Tom Herpich, and Megan McCarthy, and it was directed by Lauren Faust. The episode featured the return of old characters to the series. These characters are voiced by Tara Strong and Kristen Bell as Snips and Snails. I know absolutely nothing about My Little Pony, so I wouldn't know if these are actual characters in there. Respectively, Bell and Strong previously appeared in the episode Time for Haywire. That sounds like it's probably an episode in there. Several new characters are introduced in this episode, including Rose from the Cutie Mark Chronicles. Of course it would. And Pumpkin Pie from the Saddle Club. This is the second episode to feature Rose. I thought I introduced them in this episode. It's true, it really is. And this time our world stars Pinkie Pie. But that isn't all. Granny Smith is back. This marks the second time the artist Hasbro, previously, has used names of ponies, such as Twilight Sparkle, Fluttershy, and Rainbow Dash, when it comes to human names, in their shows. This is not the first time Hasbro has done this either. as they did it in the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episode Living in Ponyville, and the My Little Pony Equestria Girls episode The Mysterious Mare Duvel. What? Sugar and Spice, Cheerilee and Rockhoof. As the episode begins, the viewer can see several characters of Equestria in the crowd. Rarity, Applejack, Spike. Season 3, Episode 1, Unnamed Earthmare 1. Apple Bloom and herself. Then a subplot consisting of the friendship of Sugar and Spice. What is this? I'm just waiting for it to do something way out there from this. Cheerilee and Rockhoof, although this is entertaining enough, Rockhoof's unfolds. It is revealed that Rockhoof and Cheerilee are originally in love. When they were separated, Rockhoof decided to stay on his home planet, Equestria. I doubt this is part of My Little Pony, but then again, I know nothing about it, so you know. Leaving his wife on Earth to live her dreams as an Earthmare. This is definitely not part of this series. I refuse to believe that it is. However, he forgot to tell her to stay in space. As Rockhoof's home planet is not in space, this causes the separation of the pair. When Cheerilee arrived on Equestria, she began her job as a teacher. After teaching a student, Rarity, the Equestria native, Cheerilee realized how beautiful the planet was. During her time here, she also met a friend, Sugar. The relationship was to last, but Rockhoof soon realized he had forgotten about his homeworld, and that all he did was work and go to parties, and had forgot to send word to his wife. So he tells Cheerilee about it, and she goes back to... What is this? And she goes back to Equestria to bring back Rockhoof. After Rockhoof gets home, the Earthmare tells him all about the destruction of Ponyville, including Applejack breaking her legs in Ponyville's spruce trees. What? Rockhoof goes to search for the ponies. The best part about this is that this isn't just the storyline of the My Little Pony. It's also getting all the weird fan stories in with it, likely. So you get some stark contrasts mixed in here. She helps him find a tree, explaining it's the secret path to the Cutie Mark Crusaders. However, I'm sure that's part of the original thing. It sounds dumb enough, honestly. However, they are far from their new home. Upon finding the Crusaders, Rockhoof finds his friend, Pie Family, being attacked by giant Doofenshmirtz? What? Much like Granny Smith was in the episode Mod Pie. At the same time, the plot seems to start to work against the main six. I like how, yeah. Okay, as the plot unfolds, Pinkie Pie reveals she thought of the Mod Pie plot and starts to infiltrate Equestria to figure out what happened. As Rockhoof and Sugar search for the missing ponies, they were joined by Cheerilee, Pie, and Slicer. The main six's sister, the group meet up with the Crusaders, who explain that Pinkie Pie has been trapped by Doofenshmirtz, and the Earthmare is also trapped. So they set out for Sugar Cube Corner to use the Twilight Crystal. Is this actually something in there? No, it's not. It's from a completely different series. At Sugar Cube Corner, the main six and the Crusaders prepare to destroy the Twilight Crystal with the use of a machine the main six made. Granny Smith helps them. After Rockhoof convinces her he can fix the machine. However, the plot begins to unfold again. As Applejack remembers her legs... Is she the one that broke her legs on the spruce trees? Yeah. So Raku, Cheerily, and the others escape, and once more the plot seems to work against the main six. Pinkie Pie's investigation goes as far as infiltrating Sugar Cube Corner and nearly getting hit with the Twilight Crystal as it destroys. Once the Twilight Crystal is destroyed, the group finds their friends. Anyway, I'm going to have to end this video here. If you liked it, please subscribe. Maybe we'll get more stuff like this in the future. But anyway, subscribe, like, comment. I probably already said that before. But anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.